Good morning. My name is Matt Miller. I'm with the Institute for Justice. We are a public interest law firm. We're based in Arlington, Virginia, but Arif Panju, the attorney you see behind me, and I work out of our Texas chapter down in Austin. We're here this morning to announce a federal lawsuit against the state of Texas on behalf of Isis Brantley. I'll walk through a little about what we plan to do this morning, and then Arif will tell you more about the case. I'll speak. Arif, who's the lead attorney on the case, will speak. Isis will tell you her story. Then we can do some questions. And then after that is over, Isis is going to do a live demonstration of African braiding inside of her salon. So I will turn it over to Arif now. We thank you all very much for coming out and being interested in Isis's story. Arif?
Good morning. My name is Arif Panju with the Institute for Justice. This morning we filed a lawsuit, a federal lawsuit, challenging the application of Texas's barbering laws and regulations to African hair braiding instructors. These constitutional claims seek to vindicate her right to earn an honest living in the occupation of her choice, economic liberty. Now, to teach a 35-hour hair braiding course, one that the state requires before a person can legally braid for a living, the state of Texas is requiring that Isis convert her hair braiding business into a 2,000 square foot barber college. They're also making her go to barber school herself to become a licensed barber instructor. But braiding is not barbering, and braiding instructors shouldn't be forced to build a barber school or take classes from barbers. In Texas, to teach hair braiding, to teach the 35-hour required course before someone can walk out of this door and braid for a living, they have to open a barber college, which would mean opening a minimum of 2,000 square foot facility, equipping it with things that have nothing to do with hair braiding, like having a minimum of 10 barber workstations, a minimum of 5 sinks, a hooded hair dryer, barbering textbooks. Isis also needs to become a licensed barber instructor, which means she has to become a licensed barber, 1,500-hour license. She has to become a licensed barber instructor, 750-hour license, and build that barber school. In total, Texas wants her to take 2,250 hours of licensing courses, pass 4 licensing exams, build a fully equipped barber college, all to teach a 35-hour hair braiding curriculum that the state requires, and that is impossible to fail because Texas does not require an exam at the end. That's not only unfair, it's unconstitutional. And that's why this morning she's teamed up with us. We filed a case in the federal district court in Austin. Now, tellingly, the state of Texas will waive all these regulations if Isis will simply stop teaching here and go to work and teach at a licensed barber school. In fact, she's done that, and they've allowed her to do so. But if she wants to teach the exact same curriculum so her students can walk out of this building and braid for a living, she needs to comply with the barber school laws and the barber instructor regulations. Now, I'm going to let you talk to Isis about her story, but this is not the first time that Texas has made people like Isis fight for their economic liberty. Isis was arrested in 1997 for not having the right permission slip from the government, a cosmetology license which takes 1,500 hours to simply braid hair for a living. And they handcuffed her and hauled her away. That was a 10-year fight that ended in 2007 when the Texas legislature stepped in and passed a 35-hour hair braiding license and effectively declared Isis the winner. But here we are today again, fighting for the economic liberty of hair braiding instructors, and Isis is once again in front of that fight. So I'm going to let you speak with her and introduce her. The bottom line is this: Texas has no problem with Isis teaching. They only have a problem with her working for herself.
Yay, it's victory! Good morning to everyone, and thank you, ancestors, for the courage. I am a professional African hair braider, and I've been braiding for the last 25 years in the state of Texas, teaching and sharing the art of African braiding to many. I have been fighting this fight for economic liberty endlessly for years, and today is a celebration of victory. What this lawsuit is going to do is empower me to empower others who seek an African braiding license and who want badly to earn an honest living. And that's what I want. That's all I want. I kind of felt over the years that my civil rights were being violated, and today I'm taking my chapter to the next level. I thank the Institute for Justice, for stepping in. I begged the state of Texas to help me to earn an honest living. I'm good enough to teach in your schools, but I'm not good enough to earn an honest living. So the state of Texas want me to give them $25,000. That means I have to earn $25,000 to earn a license when I just want to earn an honest living. What's wrong with that? I think this is today's civil rights movement, especially for African American people and people that are over here that want to twist, lock, and braid hair and come to the Institute for Ancestral Braiding, African braiding, and get a license and be trained. What's so wrong with that? I have 5 children. For years, I have been denied the right to twist, lock, and braid hair and teach it to my community. Can you imagine how much money that is that I've lost not being able to compete in this industry? African braiding industry is a multi-trillion-dollar industry, and I deserve the right to earn an honest living. Economic justice means for me freedom, jobs for the jobless, homes for the homeless, and we are talking about millions of people in Texas that only choose to come to the Institute for Ancestral Braiding because I'm a professional and I'm an expert at what I do. So here we go. We're wanting the state of Texas to realize that I deserve the right to earn an honest living. Please, I deserve that right.
And now we're happy to take some questions from anyone that's here, or break out separate sessions and answer questions one-on-one.
Do you want me to talk some more?
We're going to break out and talk to some folks individually.
I wanted to ask, it's only in Texas this kind of regulations, or every state has similar regulations?
You know, there was a time where occupational licensing laws were not as onerous and arbitrary because there weren't that many of them. But now 1 in 3 Americans requires government's permission to work. So when people are walking and driving to work this morning, when they walk through that door, they're doing so because the government has given them permission to do so. And all too often, those licensing boards that pass a lot of these regulations are run by people who are licensees. They're simply attempting to protect themselves from competition and make it difficult for people to enter their industry. That's exactly what's happening in the industry involving African hair braiding, with the cosmetology licensing laws and the barbering laws. Now, with respect to braiding, we've litigated similar cases that involve the practice of hair braiding running up against a state licensing board like a cosmetology board. The last case we won was in Utah in 2012. We also won a case in the Southern District of California, both federal cases. Now, it's important to recognize that the principle that we're asking the court to recognize and to enforce constitutional limits on and to protect is economic liberty. And that does not change whether we're in Texas or in any other state in the United States. Economic liberty is the right to earn an honest living in one's chosen occupation. It dates back to the very beginning of the 14th Amendment and the reasons behind it. The right to earn an honest living is at the core of everything we do, and we should be able to exercise that right without having unreasonable interference by the government when we try to do so.
What has been happening with Ms. Brantley's situation between the time she was arrested and now, the stretch of time to get to this lawsuit? What's been the back and forth?
So from 1997 to 2007, ISIS fought this fight and took it to the legislature, and they passed a 35-hour hair braiding license. That's where that fight ended. The problem and why we're here today is because they wedged that 35-hour law, hair braiding licensing law, into the barbering statute. And so they're applying all the barber regulations to people like ISIS who simply want to teach people to braid hair. And to teach that 35-hour course, she would have to convert her school into a barber college. She would have to become a licensed barber instructor. But like we said earlier, braiding is not barbering, and braiding instructors shouldn't be forced to build barber schools or to take classes from barbers.
And I want to say that I've been talking since 2007 up to this day to the state of Texas about writing the law differently so that I can run my Institute of Ancestral Braiding for African braiders and entrepreneurs, because I'm an expert And they have declared me the expert of ancestral braiding, or African braiding in the state of Texas. They have even allowed me to go into their schools and as a guest instructor and teach in their schools. And that's how they've pacified the energy that and the desire and the fight inside of me for these last 10 years was because they kept saying, oh, just go into our schools, we know you're the best. And you have all these people throughout Texas that really want to make and earn an honest living, and they can't go to work because there are no Texas cosmetology schools or barbering schools that teach the art of ancestral or African braiding. So they come to me to get the training, the science, the technology of braiding, and then they find a school somewhere in the haystack to go and do the 35-hour of sitting for the documentation of hours. So I just want to say that I am a proud citizen of Texas. I have raised great children. I am not at war with the state of Texas. I just want my civil rights to be respected. And I want that to leave to the next generation. I want to pass this gift down. I didn't join to do this. I was born to do this. And that's what many people in Texas who have these unreasonable laws do not understand. I'm an expert in my field. So why don't you allow me to earn an honest living? I'm good enough to teach in your schools. Am I good enough to earn an honest living?
And a victory for ISIS in this case is a victory for all Texans. What she's asserting is not that she has a right herself to have an honest living or an honest living, but that all Texans have a right to earn an honest living in the occupation of their choice. It just so happens that in her particular case, that the state is imposing unreasonable laws. And now we get to present to the court an opportunity to defend economic liberty, to enforce constitutional limits on government, and to ask government to show what evidence they have to even regulate African hair braiding instructors in the first place. And we're looking forward to that fight.
Can you make it clear what you do now and how it would be different if you won this lawsuit?
Absolutely. What I do now is change lives, create jobs. I teach here at the Institute for Ancestral Braiding, the technology of braiding, and then I give them the gift to go out and start their own practices and their own businesses. So I've created hundreds of entrepreneurs here. I do nothing different here today that I did in 1984, that I did in 1995 when I was cited for braiding without a cosmetologist's license.
And if you're successful with the lawsuit?
Oh my God, if success rains down upon me, it enables me and empowers me to create economic liberty for those in the community that wish to become African braiding entrepreneurs. You would be surprised how much that would help the economy. People will be, they'll work. And there's so much money in this industry, in the beauty industry, period. But separate from the cosmetology industry, there's a whole lot of wealth and abundance in African braiding entrepreneurs.
I have a question for Ms. Brantley. Do you still braid here?
Absolutely.
Okay. And can you tell me a little bit about the price ranges? Would you call this a multi-trillion-dollar industry?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, the $1 trillion are not passing through hands that look like mine. They're passing through hands that look like others. And that's why we want economic liberty and to earn an honest living so that we can get a part. We can have some of those trillions that we are giving to other people. Braiding can range from $35 to $3,000. I mean, it takes nothing. This 35-hour law that we are under now with the state of Texas, it takes nothing. You're just born a braider and can go to work tomorrow. Once you are given the skills and the technology of African braiding, you can start working immediately. I've had many transition from corporate jobs. Now they are braiders. They're entrepreneurs here in Texas. I've had many that come from homelessness to nothing. Battered wives, battered women, women that were on welfare. They went from welfare to well-being. But this industry is something to help the economy. I feel that when we win this case of economic liberty, it's going to help everyone in the state of Texas. Do you know how many millions of people want to come to the Institute for Ancestral Breeding just to be given the skill and taught the right techniques and then licensed here at the Institute for Ancestral Breeding? So it's going to be a victory for everyone.
Do you have braiding right now?
Absolutely. I had braiding right now. I'm born a braider. It's my culture.
It's very fine. What do you call that?
One thing that's important to know is that if ISIS didn't have to face these types of regulations, she could expand her business. She could take it into other cities. She can go to other cities and teach. People could come from other states and be able to learn braiding from her and walk out the door and begin working in Texas. But unfortunately, these licensing laws have impeded her from being able to do so. And so, to the extent that she'd want to do more than she's doing now, and even simply have her students walk out the door and be able to legally braid, which they can't. It takes a case that defends and a judge that enforces constitutional limits on government and vindicates her right to economic liberty to earn a living braiding hair for a living as an instructor for future hair braiders.
James, representing Black Contemporary Television. Is there a deeper reason you think that the government, the state of Texas, is asking you to get a license?
There are rules against African hair heritage throughout the state, but the deeper reason we don't give power to, the deeper reason we want to emphasize here is economic liberty. And it is my right as a citizen, and it is my civil right. So constitutionally, it's not legal to violate my rights and to require some unreasonable laws that don't fit my standards. So I want to braid and teach to the community to pass this down to the next generation, and there's absolutely no crime in that.
The deep reason that you're referring to happened 70 years ago when courts began putting economic liberty on the back burner and enforcing limits on and protecting other constitutional rights, but giving second hand to property rights and economic rights. But it's important to enforce constitutional limits when they butt up against all forms of liberty, including our right to be non-slavery. And so we're asking courts to engage on this issue, to hold government accountable, to ask for evidence when they're faced with a lawsuit or someone simply asking, like ISIS, for a declaration from the court that this application of laws against her, or laws that are wholly irrelevant to the teaching of hair braiding, like opening a barber school or becoming a licensed barber instructor, that those be declared unconstitutional. If courts begin to do that, and take economic liberty seriously, we'll begin seeing less of these suits that have to be filed, unfortunately. Sure. Yeah, and if you want to do one-on-ones or go inside, this is the time to do it.